Moritz in Switzerland, a stunning location high in the Swiss Alps in the Engadine Valley, and for nearly 130 years they have been racing bobsleds from Moritz down the road to the village of Celerina, and that is where we are again for round 7 of the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup. Good morning everybody, and welcome to the only remaining natural track on the planet built by hand every single year. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me for the women's race is Canadian Ben Coquel, so congratulations on your World Cup debut here. One of the things that everybody loves about coming here is the scenery, but Ben, this track is just astonishingly different from anything else.
I mean, it's the most unique track in the world. It's a natural track. The ice conditions vary from day to day, and you know, your runner choice is important. The first heat and the second heat are very different. It's almost like racing on a different track.
And when you're on an artificial track, you're in a concrete channel, raised off the ground, it rattles, it vibrates, you feel and hear the noise of the sled. Here, you hear the wind noise. Yeah,
it's basically a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
It's silent, it's like a cloud, and as a brakeman, it's absolutely unbelievable to ride in. You know, 2 runs a day is normally my limit, but here I think I could do 10.
Well, one of the things here is the corners are so long and progressive. The speed is high, second only really to Whistler in the speed on the track, and you can hear the wind noise, but the pressure on the athletes is much less than most other turns.
It's just such a gradual, soft pressure. It's actually nice to do, and you know, it's the best track. The ambiance, everything. The coffee's at the top of the track. It's amazing.
Yeah, you just have to bring a pocket full of change.
Yeah.
And a very big pocket. Well, again, the longest track that we use, 1,700 meters, and it's an astonishing place to come and race. Our World Cup series this year being led by Kaylee Humphries. After a year away last year, she's returned as a US slider, newly engaged, married, and in a new nation. But apparently, she didn't forget how to drive. Right behind her, though, the likes of our World and Olympic champion Mariama Yamanka, Germany's Stephanie Schneider, Christiane de Braun, your compatriot from the Canadian team, and this new young German girl, Lara Nolter, who joined the World Cup after Christmas and has had 4 World Cup races and a medal in each one. We've got the veterans like Nadezhda Sergeyeva, who's now in her 30s, early 30s, as a very experienced part of the team. Now, one of the things that is different about this track is, I wouldn't say that the brakeman is redundant, but you have less of an input in the overall result perhaps than the driver does here compared to any other track.
Sure, I mean, it's a really long track. The downtimes are over a minute as opposed to most tracks, you know, they're under a minute. So the push is negated by a really good drive, a solid equipment choice, and just you know, exits and entrances of corners. It should be exciting to see, you know, these drivers go at it.
Yeah. Well, the equipment choice might have something to say later on. Historically, this track starts off very frosty with overnight lows down to -20 and gets quicker and quicker as the sun comes onto the track and the temperature warms up. It was relatively mild last night, so let's see what happens. Race 7 of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup in Moritz. Wai Mingming and Lu Chuyang of China get us underway, and immediately a start record. Ben Coquel, the track is hand-built every year, so all the records are reset every season.
Yeah, it's a new record every year. So, you know, I mean, it's really important to have a good start, but those kinks are important too, and she was pretty straight out of the kinks, no skids or anything, so she should carry pretty good speed through the snakes here.
Wow, rattled it heavily off the wall, and that's going to cost her time. Out of Sunny and heading down through Nash and Dixon, named after the 2 British sliders from the Moritz Bob Club who won the '64 Olympic 2-man gold. Nice height in Horseshoe, that's critical for speed down in the forest.
Yeah, 100.2 kilometers an hour, so we'll see how that compares to the rest of the field later on.
And you can see how frosty the track is looking. Normally, most racetracks will get a spritz with water and you get a high gloss sheen on it. So Wai Mingming, 137 at the bottom. That's pretty decent speed this early in the day. and she will come across the line with a new track record, 109.08. Now, the records were set in monobobs in the Youth Olympic Games, so this is a two-seater record that's been set this season. So, because there's been no Swiss Championships, no Europa Cup racing or anything else here, because of the Youth Olympic Games, this is actually the first official two-seater race on the track. Brakewoman there in her second World Cup start, little eager on the brakes. And that is probably a lot of early height in Snake.
Yeah, and we'll be looking to see both the start record and track record go down a few more times over the course of the day.
I would think so, and possibly in the second heat as well. Well, they had good height there in Horseshoe. You want to be up close to the woodwork as the Chinese sled first down. Next up, Misha McNeil of Great Britain. 5th place in last year's race. She's got Montel Douglas behind her.
This has been one of the better tracks for her in the past year.
Her World Cup best, 4th place in Altenburg last year. So this is where she has had some good results. Sean Olsen at the back, keep going. It's a long, flat start, isn't it? It doesn't dive off a hill like Koenigsegg.
No, and even the grade of the dip is quite small, so you can push quite far here.
Yeah. And we'll see that in the four-man. They're pushing all the way down to the first kink. Watch the runner tips. You've got to be as still as possible. You're barely breathing in the sled.
Yeah, even as a brakeman, you know, if you load in and you're not exactly where you want to be, you got to wait until wall to make any sort of adjustment.
Yeah, if you move there or flinch, then the sled breaks into a skid and you can't get it back. Down into Nash and Dixon. Ooh, little touch there between the two. Now you want to go nice and high again in Horseshoe, diving off into Telephone. Well, a little slower there. Chinese sled had 100.2, so they're a kilometre an hour down. But Misha building the lead. Again, not as quick as Wai Ming Ming.
And that speed out of Horseshoe is really important.
A nice clean run here should help with speed at the bottom, but the Chinese sled nearly 138. And Misha McNeil not as close to that. New record though, 108.82.
And now the brakeman's time to shine.
Yeah. Well, historically, in tracks that looked a lot more like the braking finish that had ice and snow. Right. Gomer Lloyd was telling me when he started, boy, you used to brake into Horseshoe. If you didn't, you were going right off the top. Well, nice load. And again, where you get in, you have to stay, don't you? No matter how uncomfortable you've sort of misloaded.
Yeah, I mean, you can't underemphasize how little movement can cause the sled to go sideways, so it's important. I mean, our coaches drill it home to us all week. Yeah.
Well, there's Misha, smile on her face with Montel Douglas. That was a pretty decent looking run. Next up is the third of our sleds. 6th World Cup start for Ying Qing, like teammate Wai Ming Ming. They started in the World Cup this season after a couple of years of driving.
And they've improved so fast. I mean, all these athletes are so young, and you know, they're getting better and better.
Well, she raced here previously in the Junior Worlds in 2018. She finished 6th. Oh, and a little skid.
See, and that's tough. It'll take away a lot of the velocity that you gain from your push.
And the runners have got to come straight down the track towards us. Look, she's leaning forward, nose up against the cowl, just focused on the next turn. And for the brakeman, this must feel like forever until you get into Snake, where there's an actual corner.
It's actually incredible. You wait and wait and wait for it until you finally feel something.
Whereas if you're in somewhere like Winterberg, you're in corner 5 or 6 by that stage.
Or Whistler, corner 2.
Yeah. 900s up. 99.6, again, not quite as quick out of Horseshoe as her teammate. And the gap is coming down over Misha McNeil.
Yeah, and that speed out of Horseshoe is really slowing her down at the bottom of the track.
And these final 4 corners, the big 4 right-handers, you feel all those. Speed building down towards the bottom. Again, a little quicker than the British sled. Good speed towards the line. And she's in second place by a 1/10 of a second. So 108.92. Well, if there's ever anywhere where you're going to enjoy your day sliding, this had better be it. If you don't like racing in St. Moritz, then you may well have found the wrong sport for yourself. Brakewoman just letting the sled run a little up past the finish dock.
It's always great racing here too. I mean, it's where the sport was born, and you know, it's a little added juice for the brakeman, that's for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, the longest track, second fastest, but in comparison to Whistler, it's like night and day. This is, I was saying yesterday in Skeleton, it's so different the way you drive this track. It ought to actually be called a different sport to bobsled. It's totally different. And you know, what a location as well. It's not a great hardship to come here.
Yeah.
Next up, Martina Fontenay for Switzerland's 9th in last year's race. Her World Cup best, though, 5th here in the race in February 2018. 22nd World Cup start for her. And brakewoman Nadia Pasternak spent the last couple of weeks trying to get over a cough and a cold, still coughing and spluttering. And it's different here, isn't it? You're nearly 2,000 meters up in the mountains. Everything is a bit of an extra effort.
Oh, that's tough out of the kink there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nadia was I think a javelin athlete. She's a pretty good athlete.
And Martina bumping off the zero kink, and that little skid takes a bit of speed away. A 10th in front of Misha McNeil. Well, this is the Swiss home track. Anywhere where you go to your home track, everybody thinks, yeah, they've got a huge advantage. But the track isn't built until November, beginning of December. And because the Youth Olympics, the Swiss have had no Swiss championships or anything here.
Yeah, I mean, you want the bonus of extra runs on your home track, and they just don't get it.
No, because they can't do it in the spring because it's melted away and it's not built in the autumn. And in fact, half of the track is a golf course during the summer and a nice walk down through the woods. Still a 10th in front. Nice looking lines from Martina Fontenay. What's the speed? Will she still be in front? Through these final two corners, the tap on the right can often cost you a position, but it's a new track record, 108.59.
It looks like the track is cooking right now, speeding up.
Well, we saw it in the final day of training. From about 9 o'clock onwards, suddenly the speed started to pick up in skeleton training. That's when the warmth of the sun starts to have an effect. And of course, she has had several races on the track over the years.
Yeah, and our training for bobsled's been at 1:30 every day, so.
Very different conditions indeed. Diving out a horseshoe into telephone. If you come out a little too far to the left, you get a big, firm take on there, and that robs the speed of the sled. But Martina Fontenay is the race leader after the first 4 sleds. Next up, definitely always a candidate for a medal here, Kaylee Humphries. 25 race wins now, 3 in US colors, 27 medals, of which another one earned this season.
Yeah.
And a 550 with Lauren Gibbs behind her, but again, rare mistake by Kaylee, gets bumped away out of the zero kink.
Looks like she's in her BTC this week, which is, you know, the sled she's had the most runs in.
Yeah, this is like a well-worn shoe for her. She knows exactly what to expect from it.
The extension of her hands.
Yeah. Big landmark for Kaylee Humphries, her 125th World Cup start. Nice, smooth drive again down to horseshoe. Let's see the height.
Yeah.
Pretty decent, and just lands it perfectly. 1:01.0, the fastest speed we've seen by a comfortable kilometre an hour. And again, Ben, the transitions, the sled just looks like it's doing nothing, and that's always the sign of a good drive.
I mean, the bottom of the track here is so smooth. The transitions in and out are just long, fast, and I mean, Kaylee's a great driver.
Huge track record, 1:08.24. Massive, massive run from Kaylee Humphries. Her last win here back in 2013-14 with Heather Moyse on the back of the sled.
She's done some impressive things here. I remember back before the Sochi Olympics when she raced with Heather Moyse. They were in 10th after the first heat.
Yeah.
Moved up and actually won the race.
And she won the World Championships here in 2013 as well with Chelsea Valois. So she's had lots of experience, but they're just bumping a little off the zero kink. And down here as well, a tap as she got out of Gunter Sachs and on the straight down towards the final couple of corners. And out of Martineau and Portago, a rattle across the line as well. So there is more time in the sled, That was not mistake-free by Kaylee Humphries, our race leader, Heat 1 of the Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Straight out the blocks, Nadezhda Sergeyeva of Russia, 46 World Cup start for her. Yulia Shokshweva back on the sled. This is the first time that she's raced with Sergeyeva since Lake Placid.
Yeah, and a little tap out of the first kick there, but kept her straight after. So, you know, she should be okay for speed heading into the wall here.
7th last year, her best was 6th a couple of seasons earlier, 2017 race. And Sergeyeva, the most experienced of the Russian athletes. She's the only one here in the World Cup this weekend. Again, you can hear the crackle of the runners on the ice, can't you, when it's cold?
Yeah, she's pretty high through horseshoe.
Nice height through horseshoe. She got tapped away in Devil's Dyke. We saw a lot of that yesterday. And then into tree, leap, bridge, and Sachs. And out of the Gunter Sachs curve, little rattle off the straight. Decent speed, but she's a long way shy. She's not going to be in the top 3, 5th at the line. I wonder a little what she's going to think of that run. There were a few too many mistakes.
Yeah, it started at the top.
And Ben, you've got a choice here. The sled is the sled. You can't change the aerodynamics. You can't trim it out for speed like you would in an Indy car on a super speedway, but you can make a runner choice, and maybe that's not helping her here.
Yeah, I mean, you've got different radiuses on your runners. Some are fat and some are skinny, and you know, in these conditions, I would say most of them are on fat runners.
And historically, it's like the difference between a sneaker and a stiletto heel. If you think about the colder the ice, the thinner the runner you can use, because it doesn't dig in and it doesn't cause friction. The warmer the ice, the fatter the runner you tend to have to go with. But fat runners equal speed, so it's not always logical. Next up for the Netherlands, for Belgium rather, Anne van Nieuwenhuis. Best here, 8th place in last year's race. 46 World Cup start for her. Now let's see what she can produce. 5.70, so a couple of hundreds behind Sergeyeva. But of all the tracks that we come to, like Koenigsegg last week, where she had a career best, this one rewards good drivers, and Anne has got great hands on the D-rings. So 6th fastest start, and heading into sunny, she's already up to 4th place on the split times.
Yeah, she's driving it up.
And in the back seat, you know it's going well because it's a comfortable ride, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you know, I slid with Spring my first couple of years, and he always used to have a deal with us that if he drove up our push, we owed him a beer for every space.
All right, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
All right, so Anne van Nieuwenhuis, top 6 run at the moment. Let's see if she can find speed down the bottom. Nice clean run off Gunter Sachs, and heading down towards the line. Good speed, 139s. So does she move up a bit? Yeah, up into 5th place ahead of Sergeyeva. So 109.01, second fastest speed. And if she's gone with a fatter runner, then as the track speeds up in the second heat, that might be a little bit of an issue, but we'll have to wait and see. The fatter the runner, the bigger the contact patch. In theory, the more control you have. But it's control versus speed. Bump there.
Yeah, she's high and parallel, right at that yellow sign.
Yep. Nice height. Watch the brakeman there, Sarah Hertz, buried in the back of the sled. Doesn't look overjoyed with that. Next up is the first of our 3 German athletes. 5th World Cup start for Lara Nolte. She's had a win, 2 silvers and a bronze in the previous 4. Raced here in the Junior World Championships, silver medalist in 2018. She won gold in the under-23 category She's got Ann-Kristen Strack behind her at the moment. Oh, and that's a horrible skid off the zero kink.
Yeah, Nolte's really hit the scene. I mean, she's a young pilot. This German program tends to not rebuild; they just reload. And as soon as one driver moves out, another one fills the spot. And she's had a great start to her career.
Well, Kim Kalicki earned the 3rd spot for North America. She got a bronze and a silver in her first 2 World Cup races. Thought, all right, this girl's arrived. Then suddenly after Christmas, Lara Nolte's beaten her into the team, and she got a bronze, a silver, a gold in her first 3 races. Big skid again there out of Nash and Dixon, and that's really robbing her of pace, but still in 2nd place.
Yeah, that skid caused her to come in a little lower through Horseshoe than I'm sure she would have liked.
So Kaylee Humphries currently fastest. Laura Nolte half a second back, drifting away to 4th place now on the split times, and just a little rattle off Sachs down the straight on the driver's left, which is unusual. Clean through Martineau and Portago, but a 109.01, exactly the same as Anne van Nieuwenhuis, off a start that was 1700s quicker, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's the track for drivers to show off a bit, you know.
Well, that was the first run of training that popped up in the race, so she'll throw that one away and have to try and improve in the 2nd heat. But that showed all the mistakes that you can make. Ann-Kristen Strack, the brake woman, a veteran, but a bump off the zero curve. You saw how sideways she got here as well. Out of Sunny into Nash and Dixon.
Yeah, that kink is just so important because you build speed in those long straightaways, and she'll want to fix that skid for the next run for sure.
Yeah. Well, it looks like she's on fat runners. Not an awful lot of control. Front of the sled wasn't going where she wanted. Next up for Austria, Katy Beil, 26-year-old, and 25-year-old Jennifer Onyesanya behind her.
Let's see what happens.
Well, she got a decent run out of the zero kink. Ooh, and just leans it away from the wall.
And that's okay as long as she stays parallel.
Yeah. See little bits of debris from the trees in the track. And they're very skillful the way they build this track. You'll notice in a lot of the walls, like the top there are the trunks of trees sticking out. And the reason they're so close to the trees is because that's not where the snow falls off. The snow falls off the ends of the branches outside the track, not into the track.
Well, and that's why they call tree corners.
Yeah, exactly right. It's always had a tree in the wall. So building the speed here, Katy Beil, 5th at the start, but drifting away to 7th place. Didn't have good speed out of Horseshoe. Only 98 kilometers an hour, only 114 there. Kaylee Humphries 2 kilometers an hour quicker.
Yeah, and she's going to want to see 139 if she's going to try to make up any ground.
Yeah, it's not getting that at all from the Austrian sled. But at the line, up to 4th place. So a good run through the fast right-handers and down to the bottom of the track. Sort of rescued that run. And off a 5.66, that was the 5th fastest start. They drive themselves into 4th place, but it was all drifting away early on in the run for her. And needs more height in Kreisel.
And it's been tough all week for them to get the height that they want. Just the exit of Snake 2 is pushing them away, and it's causing that late entrance.
Look pretty good down the bottom. This is the final 2 corners, Martineau and Portago, where you cross over the Cresta Run. There's a little wooden bridge there over the historic Cresta Run that runs down the valley alongside us. Now our world and Olympic champion, Mariama Yamanka, with the 19-year-old sensation of this season for Germany, Kara Lipperheider. Started sliding in November. January, she's in the World Cup squad. I think they found somebody.
Yeah, Mariama Yamanka. It's got to be one of the most fun names to say on tour, that's for sure. And Kira, she's a mini Drazik. That's what they call her, anyways.
All right, okay. They're already talking about her in those terms.
Yeah.
Well, Yamanka, one of the rare German drivers recently that didn't start off as a brake woman. And our world and Olympic champion hadn't won a senior race until the Olympic Games. Well, it's quite a good first one to win, I guess. Now she sort of wins about every 3rd time she's in a sled.
I mean, I'd take it.
Yeah, no question. 1600s off the lead. Third fastest start, but she's up to second. Speed is good, 100.2. Not what Humphreys had. It'll be interesting to see what the FES sled produces down at the bottom. 1:16.4, that's the quickest so far. Here we go, Yamanka now using the aerodynamics of the sled. Keep it clean. She doesn't have the tap that Humphreys had.
Good speed at the bottom, though.
Yeah, really good speed. Nice through Martineau and Portago. Avoids the wall, but she is 1900s back. So Kaylee Humphreys in a customer BTC sled, still with great speed at the bottom. Now all the German men also racing this FES 2-man, built in Berlin by a German technology company.
It was a pretty clean run for her.
Yeah, little skid there, but she straightened it up, tap on the wall as well. All of these few hundreds. Look at her leaning the sled up into Horseshoe and already looking for the apex, looking on the way out.
Yeah, and Horseshoe's really like a slingshot. Sends you out into telephone, call your parents and let them know it's time to go fast, you know?
Well, the telephone used to be, when you crashed at Horseshoe, when there were no track workers, you rang the start and said, don't send the next sled, I've crashed. And bring the ambulance. Stephanie Schneider next up for Germany, 29 years old, silver medalist on the track here last year behind Alana Myers-Taylor. Good morning, Alana. A little skid and a huge slide into and off the zero kink.
And such a dominant pusher, but all of her velocity stolen right after the first kink. It's going to be a battle for her.
Well, she was bronze 2 years ago, silver last year. It is going to be a battle. She tied the start record with a 5.50, the same as Kaylee Humphreys, but she's going to be further and further behind now. This is one of the few tracks that she never really had any success on as a brakewoman. She was very successful brakewoman for the likes of Kathleen Martini, Anja Schneider-Heinze, Sandra Kyriasis, as their careers overlapped, but she's definitely now out-driving anything that she ever had in the backseat. 2300's back, still in third place, chasing her teammate Mariana Yamanka. What she got at the bottom, high 138s and at the line, hits the wall as well, third place, so 108.52.
I think it's about 900s off. Mariama.
Yeah, well, Kira Lippahide, in fact, she started in the World Cup squad in November, but she raced in the Junior Worlds here last year with Kim Kalicki.
Now in the box from Canada.
Again, you just see that crossover, sends her into the wall and a little skid. But a lot of that damage was done before they'd even got off the zero curve. Skidded onto and off it. And down here as well, more trouble in the forest.
Yeah, considering how bad her zero curve was, you know, she definitely pulled it together on the track.
It was quite a widespread field. Let's see what we can find now from Christine de Bruyn of the Netherlands, of Canada. 25th World Cup star for her. Stop laughing. It's my first time. Okay, off the zero and just about gets away with a tap on the wall.
Yeah, and you know, a little tap on the left-hand side there isn't too bad. It's better than skidding through there.
Well, our runners all look pretty much the same when you see them on TV. They're sort of shiny and metal, but you were saying this morning that she's gone for a narrow runner choice compared to the fat runners that most of the other sleds seem to have on.
Yeah, I mean, the track is so different between one heat and another, and you try to get an advantage in one of the heats. And, you know, it is a little frosty this morning, so the thinner runners were potential to gain an advantage on the first heat.
And if it stays without softening up, then she might well reap that reward. Fifth fastest at the start, she's up to fourth on the splits. It was a little skiddy when there was no pressure early on, but she's got the sled nailed under her now. This is a good looking run, this could challenge Stephanie Schneider for third, possibly. Decent speed at the bottom. How close will she be to the top three across the line? 3200s back, 400s out of the medals. So that's exactly where she wants to be, fighting for the medals every time.
This is the track where De Bruin actually qualified for the Pyeongchang Olympics, and she's come a long way since those runs, if you want to go take a look at those.
And she probably won't thank you for that.
No.
So little skid just sliding there out of Sunny into Nash and Dixon. What about the height in Horseshoe?
Yeah, it's good, not great.
Yeah, room for more. But again, you can see the eyes looking out already into Telephone and Shamrock that follows it. So Christine there in 4th place, 3200s off the lead, but 400s out of the medals, 300s ahead of Martina Fontenay. The leader after the first heat hasn't had a win here since 2014, the lead up to the Sochi Games. But Kaylee Humphries leading after the first heat with Lauren Gibbs behind her. And she has got margin for error as well. 1900s is the gap behind her to Mariama Yamanka. But Kaylee didn't have a perfect run, so she too can clean up her act. Certainly she was not to hit twice coming over the timing eye.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see the second run and see what kind of track records go down.
Well, somewhere out of the top 5 is where the medals are going to come from. Look at the gap from Schneider, 700s down to Fontenay. In fact, you know, Mish McNeil 3/10 away from that is probably not going to be in there, but we could see quite a few changes.
Well, and it's such a long track. I mean, a minute 8 seconds, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty tight.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So Katy Bile in 7th, ahead of the better of the 2 Chinese sleds. All 12 sleds down. Quite a few racing elsewhere this weekend. Missing out on Samoritz, but don't you miss out on the second heat. The sleds will be back on ice at 11 o'clock. So an hour from now, join Ben Coquell, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew for the second and deciding heat of the women's bobsleigh here in sunny Samoritz.